Hey, Rob Holmes again. This is session 12. What we're talking about now is barriers to equipping, things that get in the way. You can imagine that for 2,000 years the church has been attempting equipping, or not, on purpose and with intention, but mostly by accident and happenstance. And you already can sense the limitations of our modern church culture and system, our programs and orientations. And I just want to highlight 14 different issues that Brian and I have brainstormed and talked about. Just give you the headline issues to think about, and refer you again out to the PowerPoint and the audio files that are available. If you take a look at the website, you'll be able to download the full thing. But from where we're standing, there are some basic issues. The first would be leadership. The incumbent present leaders in the church, that's you and I, we have some issues in our own leadership structure. For example, we could be controlling and insecure. We might not be used to releasing others into the work of ministry. We might fear that we are no longer necessary. If we manage to actually raise everybody up into ministry, we won't be needed anymore. We might have developed a bit of codependence with the flock, where we deliver a weekly message and they deliver a weekly tithing, and we need each other and we give them their religious addictive hit and they appreciate that. It's hard to break that cycle. There might be status and power seeking within the church, where we want the symbols of power, numbers of people in the building, nice looking car, and so forth. And maybe equipping doesn't lend itself so easily to that. So the first main issue is with the leaders, and that's character issues, culture issues, and the way that we view things. The second main set of issues that we see getting in the way are cultural issues. Traditions, the way we do things around here, the way we've always done things, the expectations that we have of going to church on Sunday, meeting in a building, having someone speak to us, performance measurement, the way that you can just imagine the CEO of a company turning up to his business and standing in the car park with his arms crossed, nodding, saying, "Oh, there's 250 cars in the car park today. Fantastic. Did you see how many people turned up for work? Gee, really successful." But that's exactly what we do in the church, isn't it? We measure success by how many people turned up, and that's really not a very valid measure of whether or not we're succeeding at equipping the saints for the work of ministry. We have developed a culture of church as a spectator sport. Lots of watching, very little participation. We are people that fill the bleachers of Christianity instead of filling the field and getting out there and playing the game. The programs that we've set up, the evangelism, the Bible study, the worship, the prayer, the intercession, the prophetic training classes, blah, 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 every night of the week is already full. So people are deeply overcommitted and they wonder, well, how on earth am I going to find time to be involved in an equipping program? The third category or set of things that get in the way would be maybe the world, the flesh, and the devil. Things that are outside the church and outside its leadership that definitely contend with, disagree with, and dislike the idea of an empowered, powerful, spirit-filled body of Christ. Of course, the world systems don't want that. They want to put us down, make us politically correct, make sure we stay in our box, make sure that we compromise our values and standards. There is a real and genuine devil who is the enemy of our soul and does not want us to succeed, and he has numerous ways to stop the equipping process: compromise, overcommitment, adultery, financial misgivings, all sorts of issues can undermine us. A slightly more insidious issue would be counterfeits, where in our region there might be counterfeit teachers, there might be counterfeit apostles, there might be demons posing as angels of light, particularly in the prophetic realm, say, listening to the wrong source of information, the wrong channel, downloading from the wrong area. And then I guess fourthly, there are issues that aren't necessarily related to leadership, church culture, or the world, the flesh and the devil. Things like time wasting. We have a culture of time wasting with Christians who have constant but unfixable needs that can never really be fixed. We have people within our congregation, it's the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the people are getting 80% of the work done and 80% of your time is taken by 20% of the people. So you have these people who are just consuming your time. How are you ever going to get to do equipping with people if your world is taken up by others who are wasting your time? Our failure to ever produce a believable plan. What pastor, what leader has ever been held accountable to a business plan? What leader has ever been made to sit down in front of the board and explain whether they have or have not equipped people for the work of ministry? That's not even in our performance measurement criteria. In fact, as I mentioned before, we measure performance in all sorts of other ridiculous ways. What car we drive, how many people turned up to church on Sunday, whether tithes are up or down. See, getting equipping in as an actual measurement of success is a fairly large leap forward. So I want to leave you with this thought provoker, or a bit of a challenge to think about before we come back. I want to ask you this question. What elements of your personality or character, what elements of your family culture, what elements of your church as it is presently structured get in the way of the equipping process? What things stand in your way and are actually inhibiting or getting in the way of the story? Just to quote the US Army Rapid Equipping Force, they want to make sure that technologies get in the hands of people that need them right on the front line. And their job is to equip the Army with the new technologies. And they ask three key questions. They say, what is it that we need to equip? How is it that we can insert that equipment? And how can we assess the success of whether or not that equipment is doing its job in the field? And I want to ask you those three things. What equipment is needed in the church? How do you insert that into the church? And how do you assess the capabilities of whether or not that's working? My answer to that question, just speaking from a personal point of view, down in Cootamundra, I oversee a fellowship, sort of a community really of house churches where we get together in families. And I'd have to say that even though we are in a simple church model and we have people meet, at various times through the week, we have a very deeply ingrained culture of building-oriented, single leadership, meet on the weekend and have no accountability for whether or not we do what we talk about. That very much is the culture. And even though I've been working on that for 3 or 4 years, I still come up against it week after week. And so getting people free of needing me to be around on the weekend. If I'm not there, we don't meet. What is that? So that's an issue. These defaults are strongly embedded and act like addictions. And people thirst inside them for these things that are actually not very valuable and are certainly not helping the equipping process. A lot of the people in our community and congregation have a desire for inspiring worship and encouraging messages. It's like they've become diabetics. They've become addicted to a sugary, sweet, very happy environment and find this whole idea of being held accountable very, very disconcerting and uncomfortable. And the last issue where I live and work is that there's actually several counterfeits operating in our town. So as I'm pushing forward with an equipping idea, there is the default standard and setting of the local fraternal that meets together for unity of some kind. And there's actually a group of people out there speaking the same kind of language, using the same kind of agenda and ideas, but who are actually not pushing forward to the things we've outlined in the last 11 or 12 sessions. They are using the language, but they're certainly not walking the walk. What about you? What's going on where you live?